Hey guys, Mary, welcome back to Study Journey. Welcome back to the Recursion Problem Set series. This is the second episode, and in the previous episode, we did the beginning of the Recursion Problem Set series, and then we started to do the problem. So now we're going to write the test cases for it, and so without further ado, let's get into the video. Okay, so in the previous episode, we have written the code for get permutations, and this is for PS4a, which is the permutations of a string. So remember, it is going to give us a sequence, so for example, ABC, and it's going to spit out everything or all of the permutations of that sequence. So basically all the ways you can arrange it, and there's supposed to be no duplicates in the result. So now we have to test our case. So we have to write a test case for it. So in the main function, it says put 3 example test cases here. And it says for your sanity, limit your inputs to be 3 characters or fewer, as you will have n factorial permutations for a sequence of length n. So if you had like 5 numbers in the sequence, it will be 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, that many number of permutations. We're trying to limit the large amount of results that could happen, so we're going to be 3 characters or fewer. So let's write a test case for it. So I'm going to delete this line right here and write my code. So here is an example. So first, let's do input, let's say input 1. And that's going to be the string. Let's say since they did ABC, let's do CDE. And we're going to first print out the input, and then it's going to be our input, and then let's print out the expected output. So expected output, and we're going to print out, well, what would it be? Well, if it's CDE, so we should print out CDE, and then CED, and then let's say DCE, and then DEC, and then ECD, and EDC. So this is all of them that they should print out, and let's see what the actual output is. So we're going to say print actual output, and containing the actual function. So we're going to call get permutations and use input 1 as the string. And then let's do another one. So let's do input 2, and let's let this be a shorter one. So let's say MS. So we're going to print out the input with input 2, and then we're going to print the expected output, and it should be a shorter list. So it's obviously going to be MS and then SM, because as we can see, it says you would have n factorial permutations for a sequence of length n. So if it was 2, then it would just be 2 times 1, and so the result will be 2. And then for the final one, I'm going to have one with just one letter. So let's say K, because we want to test out the first option too. So if the length sequence is 1, it should just return the sequence. So we're going to print the input. So input, and it's going to be input 3. And then we're going to print the expected output, and it should just be K. Make sure to add the comma right there. And then we're going to print out the actual output by actually calling the function. So actual output, and it's going to be get permutations. and taking in input 3. Okay, so I realized I just forgot right here to print out the actual output. So this is what we're actually going to compare it to. So the actual output, and we're going to call get permutations, and it's going to take in input 2. Okay, so now we have 3 test cases, and this is the expected output, and then here is what the actual output should be. So I'm going to Command S and then save it, and then I'm going to open our terminal. Now I saved this in the folder CS Practice, and then within that, it is in PS4. So I'm going to cd PS4, and I'm going to open this Python 3 document called ps4a.py. So ps4a.py, and as we can see, here's the input, here's the expected output, and then there is a problem right here. So this is saying basically our code isn't working because get permutations isn't working. And so it says that it traces back to line 30. So let's look at line 30 up here. It is this line right here, and it says that subpermutations is get permutations sequence 1. And it says it is because permutations is not defined. And this is because right here in the beginning, when we defined it as permutations instead of permutations. So obviously the code isn't going to run. So let's save that, and then let's rerun it. And we did the same thing when we were returning permutations. So the first thing I always look for is spelling errors, because that's usually what's wrong. Okay, now that is right. So I'm going to clear the screen and then redo it again to make it clear. Okay, so here's the input, expected output, and the actual output. So let's see if they match. So CDE, and then DCE, and then DEC, and ECD, and then EDC. So we have all of them. They're just kind of in different orders, but that's okay. So MS and then SM, so that's perfect. And so all of our test cases work, meaning our code runs smoothly, and that is it. So we have just finished PS4A, and in here we have written the permutations of a string. So you can do it longer, but we just have to write out all the permutations to compare it with the actual permutations. And remember, permutations can get really long, so this is why we try to write simple code so we can solve a complex problem with really simple coding. And now that we have this, in the next episode, we're going to be continuing on to part B.